Today we are working on Psalm 47. Some of the magical uses for Psalm 47 are to increase joy, to increase pleasure, to increase happiness, to find love of all kinds, and to get help from someone in power. And I'd like to use Psalm 47 today to attract love into our lives. Now, that doesn't necessarily have to mean romantic love. It can be love in any form. Love is one of the qualities of the divine, so you can't really have too much love in your life. So this is a wonderful psalm to use. The way we work psalm magic is very simple, very direct, but extremely effective. We take the psalm in question and we speak it out loud all the way through once without stopping. This is called an incantation. Some people call it a recitation. That's fine too. After you've finished with that incantation, you go back through the psalm and you take the psalm one verse at a time, just reviewing it and considering it. And while you're doing that, you're digging for seeds of magic. You're digging for occult hidden meanings within the psalm. And it's through the act of digging, searching, finding, and also applying whatever you find there to the situation or to the issue that you've brought to the psalm. You are in effect planting those seeds in the deep, fertile ground of your mind, where they take root, they grow, they blossom forth, and then they bear real fruit after their kind. And that is what we are going to all do together right now with Psalm 47. Oh, clap your hands, all ye people, shout unto God with the voice of triumph. For the Lord Most High is terrible. He is a great king over all the earth. He shall subdue the people under us, and the nations under our feet. He shall choose our inheritance for us, the excellency of Jacob, whom he loved, Selah. God is gone up with a shout, the Lord with the sound of a trumpet. Sing praises to God, sing praises. Sing praises unto our King. Sing praises. For God is the King of all the earth. Sing ye praises with understanding. God reigneth over the heathen. God sitteth upon the throne of his holiness. The princes of the people are gathered together, even the people of the God of Abraham. For the shields of the earth belong unto God. He is greatly exalted. It's starting out with, oh, clap your hands, all ye people. Well, let's look at things magically, not religiously. And what we mean by that is when we look at things magically versus religiously, especially Psalms, we're not thinking of things in terms of any kind of historical construct. We're not thinking superstitiously. We are considering each and every word of these Psalms as being symbolic of a part of ourselves. Clap your hands, all ye people. Magically, people are thoughts. And hands represent how we do things, our work in the world, what we can create, what we can do, what we can accomplish in the world. When you clap your hands, it's a gesture of joy. It's a gesture of praise, but it's also a gesture of disruption. So if you stop doing whatever you're doing with your hands and then you decide instead to clap them in order to disrupt what's going on, in order to praise a power that's higher than yourself, that's a wonderful thing to do. What you're saying is you want all of your thoughts to stop what they're doing and disrupt things that don't look like praise. Stop doing what you're doing and praise instead. Shout unto God with the voice of triumph. So the voice is magically something that's much bigger than your physical voice. The voice is how your soul expresses itself. So when you're telling your inner thoughts that you want them to shout unto God with the voice of triumph, that is making yourself and those thoughts realize that they are already connected to God. God already hears them. So when they shout and they are clapping their hands, they are really disrupting things. They are really stopping the way things are and changing the orientation from things of this world to things of infinite intelligence. Now let's look at what God is. God in the Psalms represents Elohim, whereas the Lord represents the Tetragrammaton. And those are both ways that we can understand what the infinite is. We want our thoughts to stop creating in the finite world and instead turn and give credence to, give attention to that which is infinite, that which is the creator. We're not creating by rote anymore. We are stopping everything that we're doing, and we're clapping our hands, and we are raising our voices, each and every thought in our minds, to shout unto the source of who we are. Because there's only one source. There's one source, there's one substance, there's one force, there's one power. That singular power is not something separate from us. That's kind of a monotheistic religious point of view. This is a magical point of view. We are all one. There's no place where I stop and God starts. And there's no place where I stop and you start. We are all of one mind. We are all one with infinite intelligence. And an image that we like to use is that each of us as souls are like beams of light that are being extended from this singular source, but never separate from it, yet still completely individual and unique. And within each of those rays of perfection that we are as souls, we have been given minds. And our minds have gotten accustomed to thinking separately as if they were separate from this beam of light. And we call that an ego. And those ego thoughts are creative, and they start creating reality for us, or pseudo-reality. They create illusions, they create delusions that are very real in our experience. That's why we call our world here a nightmare, a collective nightmare, or a collective hallucination, because of the power of our thoughts. And we all got into this habit of thinking all separately and all by ourselves, thinking fearfully. And now what we're saying is, no, we are commanding all of our thoughts, all of them, all ye people, to clap, stop what you're doing, and turn what you're doing to the doing of recognizing the infinite. Stop what you're saying and turn your voice to the infinite, so that you remember who you are as a soul, and you stop all of this non-creative work that you're doing. He shall subdue the people under us and the nations under our feet. So the people are thoughts, the nations are thought forms. So we want God to subdue the people and the nations. When we say subdue, we don't mean punish. We mean we want our thoughts to be one with infinite intelligence. We don't want to continue thinking all by ourselves in these errant ways that create problems, that create all of these horrible experiences that we have here. We have been given all this power and all this creativity that we use against ourselves and each other constantly. We don't even know we're doing it. But now we're saying, stop. No. We are going to take all of our thoughts and all of our thought forms, and we want infinite intelligence to direct those things. Or here it says subdue them. When the nations are under our feet, what does that mean? It means that we want understanding. We want to understand what we're doing. We want to understand what our thought forms are. We want to understand what we see is a product of what we think. And so if we think along the lines of what God wants us to think, our experiences are going to be very different than what they are right now. He shall choose our inheritance for us. Isn't that good news? We've been choosing our inheritance for ourselves. That's not our job. We think we inherit lovelessness. We think we inherit pain. We inherit pollution. We inherit death. We inherit tragedy. We inherit all of these disgusting, awful experiences that this world that we believe in churns out for us day and night. That's what we believe our inheritance is. And we're saying, no, we are going to stop choosing our own inheritance. We want infinite intelligence to choose our inheritance for us. The excellency of Jacob, whom he loved. Selah. It's interesting. I had somebody comment on my comments about Jacob. Jacob is such a wonderful symbol in the Bible because Jacob represents that part of us that makes mistakes, that doesn't get it right. We don't always do things perfectly, and neither did Jacob. But the story about that is not that Jacob was awful. Jacob was human. And infinite intelligence didn't hold those mistakes against Jacob. Infinite intelligence said, that's okay. You can't do anything wrong. Ultimately, you can't undo what infinite intelligence created. You can only delay things. You can only misunderstand or misinterpret. And that's all that Jacob did. And what did God do in the Bible was not punish Jacob, but exalted Jacob. Very similar to what in the New Testament, Jesus talked about a story of that prodigal son that went out and did all this riotous living and blew his fortune and did everything wrong. Came home, and what did his father do? Yay, you're back. And he had a brother, and the brother said, how come you don't get all excited about me? And the dad basically said, because you never left. So don't worry about your mistakes is the message of Jacob, because infinite intelligence will never stop loving you. God is gone up with a shout, the Lord with the sound of a trumpet. So when we say that God has gone up with a shout, we have commanded all of our thoughts to shout. And that sound of a trumpet is just another joyous noise that we're making. And so infinite intelligence is there in joy with us. If you had any sort of body of infinite intelligence, it would be within your joy. So that joy, that love, all of those expressions of joy and love is where you find that infinite intelligence, not through punishment, not through depression, not through keeping track of people's mistakes or your own mistakes, not from so-called accountability or all of that. All of that will take care of itself. Our job is to just praise. Our job is to clap our hands and to stop thinking about those kinds of things, to stop talking about those kinds of things, and allow ourselves to use our voice both symbolically and physically, and our hands both symbolically and physically, to have joy so that we can find the infinite. And that's where love comes in, is through our expressions of joy. A lot of people will say, well, I will forgive them once I love them. And that's backwards, because you can't really love them until you forgive them. Because you think that if once you figure them out, then you can figure out why you should love them. But according to this psalm, you can't figure them out until you do love them. And that's what that clapping your hands is. That's what lifting your voice up is. And you do that with people. So wherever there's unloving relationships in your life, you learn to stop participating in that. You clap your hands. You shout up to the Lord, if you will. And you do that so that you can recognize that you have to love first, and then you'll understand them. Then you'll understand who they are. But this idea of, well, once I figure them out, or once I see that they've paid their penance, or once I see that they have gotten some sort of accountability, then maybe I'll forgive them. Then maybe I'll love them. We've got that backwards. Sing praises to God, sing praises. Sing praises to our King, sing praises. So singing praises. How do you sing praises? You can go into some church and start singing hymns. There's nothing wrong with that. But what tends to happen for many people, not all people, but for many people that are religiously inclined, is that they think that they've done their job. They went to church, they sang their praises, and now they can do whatever they want. And that's not what the psalm is teaching us. The psalm is teaching us that if you want love in your life, you need to sing praises, sing praises, sing praises, sing praises. And how do you sing praises? It's not just, oh God, you're so great. Aren't you so great? You are so great. As if infinite intelligence is some sort of ego that needs to be stroked. You sing praises by finding the good in what's in front of you. That's how you see things differently. You don't wait until some mystical thing has happened and then infinite intelligence changes everything for you, and then you're going to start loving everything. That's backwards. You start loving everything and singing praises and finding things to praise with what's in front of you. And that's how you turn on that spigot of love. That's how love enters your life. And that's how things are healed. That's how you start to see things differently. That's how this world as we think we see it starts to disappear, and a better world starts to emerge, which is the true world that we were created to have, which it talks about in just a few minutes. You start with praise. That's how you find what you're looking for. You don't wait and then, once everything proves itself to me, then I'll find praise. You'll never get there if you do it that way. It says, sing praises to God, sing praises unto our King, sing praises. So I think it means what it says. For God is the King of all the earth. Now, God is the King of all the earth. So why is it that we don't have godly experiences here? Because we're not living on God's earth. We decided to basically give God's earth the finger a long time ago and say, no, we'll do our own earth. Thank you very much. And that's when we started thinking these errant thoughts. We decided that we were all on our own and we were going to think thoughts all by ourselves, and we didn't need anything but ourselves. And this is what we got. And that's why when you hear something like, well, no, love first and then things will change, it seems so wrong. It seems so foreign. Why would I do that? That's not how things work. Well, it doesn't work that way in your world, but that's why your world is so bad. You don't want your world. You want God's world. You want infinite intelligence's world the way it was created for you. See, in infinite intelligence's world, everything's perfect permanently. There's nothing that needs to be healed. There's nobody that's going to die. There's nothing that's ever wrong. An ego mind says, oh, doesn't that sound boring? Doesn't that sound awful? Who wants to watch a movie where there's no conflict? Who wants to watch a movie where nothing bad ever happens? That's boring, right? So we've convinced ourselves that this is how we want it. We want all of the tragedy. We want this dark, evil world that we've concocted for ourselves, which doesn't really exist, by the way, because God doesn't will it. And what God doesn't will can't exist. But we also have free will, so we can think things on our own. And so that's why we live in this fantasy world that doesn't exist, having just awful experiences here. I mean, just watch the news. Look how bad it is here. And that's the ego's job, is to make it as real as possible for us. It's going to really hurt. It's going to be really vicious. And there's going to be all the proof we need that there is no such thing as infinite intelligence. There is no such thing as love. There is no such thing as mercy. There is no such thing as good. And there's no reason to praise anything. That's what this world is here to prove to us. So if you're waiting for the world to show you something better and then you're going to praise, you're not going to get there. You got to praise first. You've got to love first, in spite of what you think you see. That's the trick. And it's giving it to you very, very clearly here. So infinite intelligence is the king of the earth as it was created for us. And that's actually where we're alive right now. We're alive and well, asleep to that fact, having this awful nightmare about lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of misery, with a couple nice, pretty sunsets in the midst of it all. So it's not too bad. Because if it was too bad, if the ego made it too bad, we might think about ways to wake up. So there's enough here. You know, there's sex, there's good food, there's some nice people. It's not all bad, right? That's the way that the ego convinces us to stay asleep in the nightmare. It's not all bad. God reigneth over the heathen. Who are the heathen? The errant thought forms. The heathen aren't modern people who religiously identify as heathen. That's not what they're talking about. There are people who religiously identify as heathen. They aren't who this psalm is talking about. The psalmist is using that as a symbol for us, at least magically, that's how we take it, of those thought forms within our own mind, which are running amok, creating problem after problem after problem for us. It's like a computer virus run amok. But it's telling us you don't have to worry about those thought forms, because God reigneth over them. God sitteth upon the throne of his holiness. Now this came from a patriarchal time frame, but his is not accurate. There is no real good pronoun for God, but we use they because it's the closest to the truth, especially for Elohim. When infinite intelligence sits upon their throne of holiness, infinite intelligence has to be patient with us and wait for us. Because if infinite intelligence gave us free will, why would infinite intelligence say, and therefore you must do it my way? It has to wait for us to come back to the realization of who we are. And that's why infinite intelligence is constantly giving us communication. We have intuition, we have inspiration, we have holy texts, we have all kinds of ways that infinite intelligence is constantly broadcasting ways for us to escape from this nightmare, which is not really happening, but we believe it is. Constantly giving us those things. So when it says that infinite intelligence is on its throne, it's not just abandoning us, it's just patiently waiting for us to do what we need to do in order to wake up. And the first thing that it's saying that we need to do is to recognize that praise and love are the way home. And if we wait for things to change and then we praise it, then we're not going to get there. We got to start with praise. We got to start with love. It says, sing ye praises with understanding. And there's understanding again. You don't just praise arbitrarily. That's religion. A religious person will praise because they're told to, because they have to believe. But it's saying, no, there's a science to this. You need to praise because it works. You praise because that expands your good. You praise because that gets you back on the current of energy through which you find the truth, which is oftentimes in religious jargon called salvation. Salvation is simply the solving of problems, and the way that you solve problems in this world is to wake up to the solution that's already there. Not that God has to figure it out for you. The solution's already there. It's already inherent in everything. So our praise helps us to get in alignment with that current of power that is waking us up to the solution that already is there. God reigneth over the heathen. God sitteth upon the throne of his holiness. I went out of order, but you're getting the idea. Okay. The princes of the people are gathered together. Now, the princes of the people, we have kingpins of thought forms, and those can be considered the princes. If you get a certain kingpin established in a holy thought form, it tends to raise up a lot of other thoughts around it. But conversely, in the ego mind, if you can find the kingpin of a negative thought form and take care of that and turn that thought around, that whole thought form dissolves and becomes something better. For instance, if you have a thought form that keeps you broke all the time, there is a kingpin in there. And very frequently, it's a thought form that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with money. It could be a thought such as, I'm not good enough, or I'm bad, or I hurt people. And so somehow you've got this thought form that if you had a lot of money, that you'd end up hurting a lot of people. And so if you can take care of that kingpin, that prince, that is, I hurt people, and you realize, no, I don't hurt people. I'm an extension of love. I'm here only to help. I'm only here to help. Well, then that will heal your money problem, because then you no longer have that holding that thought form in place, that thought system in place. The princes of the people are gathered together. So those are the kingpins of all the thought forms, good and bad. Even the people of the God of Abraham. Now, the God of Abraham, this is infinite intelligence, but they bring in Abraham here because it's important to understand that Abraham represents the source of all faith. That was the first person in the Bible that was mentioned that actually received information from infinite intelligence that had no physical proof. He had to take everything on faith, and he did what he was told to do. He did what was in front of him to do, guided and led every step of the way, and was successful. And because of that, was able to have children, and they had children, and that represents the way that thoughts work. Thoughts generate new thoughts. And if those thoughts come from that king thought, or that father and mother thought, that original thought, and it's from infinite intelligence, then those thought forms are blessed and they bring only good. If we come up with those kingpin thoughts all by ourselves, then we have problems. And so when it says that the princes of the people are gathered together, even the people of the God of Abraham, it's saying that both the thoughts that we've come up with ourselves, those thought forms, those kingpins, and the ones that God has provided for us, they're all together in the same place. For the shields of the earth belong unto God, and he is greatly exalted. Those thought forms, even the ones that are errant, even the ones that are what it was calling heathen and creating problems, all of them can be turned around when we praise. All of them can be turned around when we praise, because it started out by addressing each and every one of those thought forms at the very beginning of the psalm and said, "Oh, clap your hands, all you people." So those thought forms that we created, those thought forms that God created, every thought form that we have going on in our minds are now focused on one goal. That's clapping and shouting. That's bringing praise to this situation. Why? Because that starts it all. That starts everything. You want love? Then it's time to praise. You don't wait for everything to work out in your life and then you're going to love people. No, you start with the love and that brings more love. You start with the praise, that brings more good. And if you start with those things, if you clap your hands, if you shout, and again, that can be figuratively, that you don't necessarily have to clap and shout. That can be kind of annoying in certain situations. But if you do that at least figuratively, meaning that I'm not going to wait until the world proves to me that everything is okay. I'm going to make everything be okay by turning my thoughts to praise right here, right now, no matter what. No matter what. What's in front of me? I've got to find something to praise about it. What's in front of me? I got to find some way to clap my hands. I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm going to stop thinking what I'm thinking. I'm going to stop saying what I'm saying. And I'm going to remember my only job right now is to praise. Because if I do that, things are going to change. And I want things to change. So you just keep coming back to the psalm again and again. And eventually you'll get a sense of peace and certainty that everything is working out just perfectly. When you get that sense, that's an intuitive signal to you from your inner guide that your spell has cast and you don't have to work on it anymore. And it's fine to just let it go and move on to something else. Thank you so much for joining us today. I so appreciate you. Until next time, blessed be.